Hey, it's Doug with Backcountry Pilgrim. I usually hate intros like this, but this video is going to be something a little different. I am just going to tell you a story of a recent fail that I had in Yosemite. I don't know how many of you noticed, but last week, May 19th, was officially the very first week in nearly 5 years that I did not have a video ready to upload. The reason was that I had planned a video on climbing Half Dome with the cables down, and I didn't make it to get the footage that I wanted for that video. I was very disappointed about that, but I think that some of the things that happened on trail on this trip really kind of opened my eyes to where I am right now with my hiking, where I am right now with Backcountry Pilgrim, and I've told this story a few times now, and many of the people that I've told it to said this would be something worth sharing, so I'm just going to do it. I'm going to try it out, see if you guys like it. If you do or if you don't, be kind, but leave me a comment and let me know if you want more trail stories like this or not. There I was. Okay, so some hiking friends of mine decided they wanted to climb Half Dome with the cables down, and they invited me to go. Now, I knew from previous experience that these two folks were in very good shape. I decided that I would backpack in the night before, spend the night somewhere, and meet up with them closer to Half Dome the next day so that I wouldn't slow them down. Now, I was not able to get a place at the Little Yosemite Valley Backpacker Camp. However, I was able to get a wilderness permit, and so I thought, well, I'll just hike up as close as I can get the night before, and then put down camp, get up the next day, and head up. Now, yes, I did say that I would hike up the night before. The reason is that these friends of mine were taking me to dinner, and I wasn't going to say no to a fancy Yosemite dinner. Plus, I was going to be trying to go pretty minimalist on this hike. I didn't want to get to camp and hang around for a long time with nothing to do. My trail name isn't Rush for nothing. It's not because I'm fast, it's because I don't sit around well. Now, I knew that this was probably going to involve some night hiking, but I wasn't too worried about it because I have been on this trail numerous times. Pretty much no chance at all of getting lost, and plus I thought it would be kind of a cool new experience to actually plan to hike in the dark. So I got into Yosemite and I did my initial talking head video about this gear that I was going to be trying out on the Half Dome cables while they were down. All I really needed to add to it was some footage of me actually using it on Half Dome, and I would have had a pretty cool video. So after dinner, I went to my car. It was about 8 o'clock, and I started repacking my full-size backpack from my day pack, climbing gear, bear canister, and everything else I was going to need to spend the night in Yosemite. And right away, things got pretty interesting. While I was packing up my gear, some women behind me called out for help, and I went over, and their propane stove was on fire. Flames were shooting out of the propane canister. They didn't know what to do. But I did see that they had some towels, so I said, hey, dump your water on the towels, throw them over the canister to extinguish the fire, and then get that fuel cut off. Well, they did, and even though their stove and canister is probably ruined, we narrowly averted disaster. So that's how the night started off. By the time I got back to the car, it was close to 8:30. So I started my hike up the mist trail in the dark. Now, I've hiked at night before, but usually only for short periods of time because I miscalculated how long something would take or because I arrived at night. I've never started a full day's worth of hiking in the dark before, so this was going to be interesting. My first significant challenge came at the fork between the Mist Trail and the John Muir Trail. Normally, to get up to Little Yosemite Valley, you've got two major choices. One of them is to go up across from Vernal Falls and then up from Nevada Falls to the top where you rejoin the JMT. The cool thing about that route is that it is a lot shorter than taking the JMT, which adds about a mile plus another 300 feet of elevation gain. The bad news is that cutting that distance down makes the going a lot harder. And at this time of year, both waterfalls were running so heavily that you were guaranteed to be completely drenched if you took the Mist Trail. Now, normally I wouldn't really care about something like that, but because it was nighttime, there was a breeze, I was heading into elevation, I really couldn't afford to take the chance of getting completely soaked. Even with my rain gear, there was no way to avoid it. If you've been on the Mist Trail in conditions like this, you know what I'm talking about. So I decided it wasn't worth the risk. So I started up the JMT, and it was amazing. The landscape was just beautiful. The cliffs were just black against a lighter gray sky. The clouds were being lit up by a 3/4 full moon. Along the way, I was seeing all kinds of cool critters and bugs, big millipedes, big like wolf spider looking things. I even saw a few scorpions. Little creepy, but overall pretty darn cool. Now the weather was good. I was actually really digging that hike. I didn't even have the headlamp on for about the first hour. I was just going by the moonlight. When things started to get a bit more technical, I went ahead and fired the headlamp up. I basically had the place to myself. Now the second major challenge was that part of the JMT was actually closed because of a rock fall that had happened that winter. So, to add insult to injury, not only did I have to go a mile out of my way and climb up 300 feet, but I basically had to descend right back down, almost on top of Vernal Falls, and still do half of the Mist Trail, even though I had taken the John Muir Trail reroute. So, by the time I got to the bottom of Nevada Falls, I was already basically as tired as I should have been by the time I reached Little Yosemite Valley, and I was also about an hour behind where I thought I would be at that point. It was pushing midnight, and here I was still having probably another hour of hiking ahead of me. I was getting extremely tired, to the point where every time I would stop to rest from fatigue, I would have to almost slap myself awake again because I was falling asleep. At the top of Nevada Falls, I went ahead and filled up my 6-liter dirty water bag. My idea was I was going to drop some purification pellets in it, let those do their thing, and by the time I arrived at camp, I should have plenty of water for the rest of the night and the next day before I got back down to where I was. Unfortunately, that bag started leaking, so I decided I would just dump it, head up to Little Yosemite Valley Backpacker Camp, and fill up there. Well, the third major challenge was that before I even got to Little Yosemite Valley Backpacker Camp, the trail was flooded. I tried about 4 different times to get around it, but no matter where I went, I was still facing a big, gross, boggy flooding situation, and it was just not something that I was willing to walk through right before I set up camp for the night and tried to go to bed. I was so tired by this point, it was pushing 1 o'clock in the morning. I decided just to go off trail, set up my bivvy, and just try to get some sleep, because at this point it was so late that I wasn't going to get enough sleep to really make the next day that much better anyway. So I set up my camp, went to bed, fell asleep for about 4 hours, woke back up with the sun blasting me in the face, and decided to go ahead and break camp. Now at this point, my friends had texted me and said that they were leaving Curry Village. At the rate that they hike, that meant that I probably had about 3 hours before they caught me, and I wanted to be a lot farther up the trail before they did. So I broke camp, left all of my main gear there, threw on the day pack with the climbing gear and my water bag, and headed up to Little Yosemite Valley Backpacker Camp, where I filled up, dropped my pellets, and started heading up the last big push toward the bottom of the climb. Now, I wasn't even all the way to where I wanted to be the night before my friends caught up with me. So here we were, the 3 of us, heading up the last push. I'm exhausted because I really only got 4 hours of sleep. I had backpacked all the way, and so I was really in no better shape probably than I would have been if I had just gotten up with them and day hiked to this point. So they went on ahead, and I just kept trudging along, getting passed continuously by groups of people, single people running. It was crazy. It was like a parade heading up to Half Dome, and I was not expecting this at all. Now, yes, it was a Saturday in Yosemite. Probably nowhere is going to not be very crowded. However, with the cables down, I really didn't expect that many people going up to Half Dome. Instead, it was more people than I had ever seen. So by the time I topped out just below Subdome, I had already fallen behind about an hour from where I wanted to be. I wanted to already be on the summit by 11 because early thunderstorms had been predicted, and here it was 11. I wasn't even to Subdome yet, and if you've ever stood looking up at Subdome, you know how daunting that thing can be. That's before you even get to the cables and do the last 400 feet. Hordes of people. I could see them climbing up and down the cables like ants on Half Dome, and I realized this is just not what I wanted. I wanted Half Dome to be kind of to myself and my friends, and instead it looked like there was going to be 100 people up there. So I stopped and sat down, and I had a real honest heart-to-heart with myself. Do I want to spend another couple of hours getting to the top, barely making it back, probably making my friends late, slowing down the people behind me on the cables while I try to get my B-roll for YouTube shot, and then have to go all the way back down, throw the rest of my 20 pounds of gear on, and hike all the way back down and drive home tonight? Well, as you might have guessed, I decided not to. So I just texted my friends, told them to go for it. They did summit using the gear that I had recommended. They said it was perfect, they wouldn't change a thing, so that made me very happy. But I didn't get to try out my new piece of gear that I was most curious about. Now, I'd already done tests. I was pretty much 100% sure it would work fine, but without actually using it on Half Dome, I don't really feel like I can recommend it yet. If I get back up there anytime soon, I'll make that video. Now, on the way down, I had another heart-to-heart with myself, wondering what it was exactly about this trip that was making me so anxious and irritated. And what I came to realize was that what I was really going for on this trip was the Half Dome cables down gear video that I wasn't going to be able to shoot if I didn't get up there and have some pretty serious time with me and the rock without anybody else trying to get up with me. Instead, I had done 90% of the work that it would have taken to accomplish that video, and I wasn't coming home with any footage. Anyway, the last unusual feature of this hike is that on our way down, when we got to the upper part of the mist trail next to Nevada Fall, we saw a woman who had been injured. She was being supported by two guys. She had her leg out in front of her with a couple of what looked to be the bottom sections of trekking poles taped to her leg. They eventually just sat her down and she started butt scooting down the steps, and I asked if they were going to make it out. It was getting pretty late in the afternoon. I had my Zoleo SOS on me, and I told them that I would be willing to hit the SOS button if they thought they needed it. Well, they said that they thought they were going to be okay, that they were going to try to get down to Vernal Falls and maybe take the horse trail and blah blah blah. So I told them, well, if I see a ranger, if I run into anybody down there, I will at least let them know where you are. Well, when we got to the bottom of the mist trail, there were half a dozen search and rescue guys sitting around talking on radios and stuff, asking people if they knew anything about this woman. So I told them what I remembered, and they basically didn't go anywhere because the problem was, at this point, given where everyone had last seen her, there were 2 or 3 different ways she might have tried to get down the trail, and to send an entire stretcher team to all 3 points wasn't possible. Until they got some better intel and knew which trail they needed to be on, it was just going to be a huge waste of time and effort to try to send people to all different points. Now, luckily, after a bit of conversation with my hiking buddy, I realized that they had said they were going to take the horse trail at some point. So I actually turned around and ran back up the trail, told them what they had said, and said, well, you know, if they knew what they were doing, that means that they would pretty much be having to take the John Muir Trail down to the horse trail. Well, that was the piece of intel that search and rescue needed, and off they went. So it seems I probably saved several lives on this hike, and I'm basically a hero. So my takeaway from this story is that I actually had a pretty amazing time. I had fantastic weather. I got to camp in an incredible campsite, waking up to the back of Half Dome, a view that not a lot of people get to see. And even where I stopped below Half Dome was an incredible view of the eastern side of Yosemite Valley. I got to see Snow Creek and a bunch of other falls just roaring, some of which don't even exist during many times of the year. got to talk to some great people, hang out with some friends. If I can label an amazing hike like this a failure just because I didn't get some footage for a YouTube video out of it, I think my priorities have gotten a little out of whack. So when I got home and woke up on Sunday realizing that for the first time in nearly 5 years I did not have a YouTube video ready to go, I actually decided maybe that's not such a bad thing. For nearly 5 years I have been making videos every week. The amount of time that takes is considerable. Any of you YouTubers out there know what I'm talking about. And the fact of the matter is, I've just let myself be ruled by that schedule a bit too much. I'm rushing through videos, I'm forcing myself to take trips that I don't even necessarily really want to go on, just so that I can make sure I stay on schedule. So going forward, my hope is to realign my goals, get back to hiking for fun and enjoyment, and making videos for fun and enjoyment. Because if they're not fun and enjoyable for me, they're not going to be for you. Basically, what I realized was that I really need to take a serious look at what my goals are for any given hike, what is going to be the return on investment for my effort, and start making my decisions based on that calculation rather than just saying yes to every hike I can because I'm a hiker and this is what I do, and I'm a YouTuber and I gotta get footage. Those goals should be secondary to just enjoying the hike. So that is my hope going into year 5 with Backcountry Pilgrim, is that I'm going to kind of get back to what I originally wanted to do with this channel, which is share my enjoyment of the outdoors with you. And whether that means a gear review video, a trip video, or just a storytelling video, I hope that the quality will increase and that you'll enjoy coming here even more. Okay, so that's my story. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. I'm Doug. This is Backcountry Pilgrim. Take it easy.